Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Listening to the podcast is only going to get you so far. Why not take your game to the next level? Check out Power Producer Basecamp on killingcommercial.com today.
Tactical skills that'll help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Want to have the sweet swag that we send out from the Power Producers podcast for your clients and employees? Check out policyt.com today.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Want to create an online presence but don't know how to start? Check out crushingcontent.com. It's done for you, so all you have to do is show up.
This is Power Producer Shop Talk, production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are redefining the sales game, and we're going to start a series on captives. We had a lot of great response to the full-length episode we did when we interviewed Warren Cleveland from Captive Coalition, and so much so that I reached out to him about sponsoring Producers in Paradise, which he was gracious enough to do. So you're going to get to see and hear from him in Key West. If you're in the family next summer, you need to be thinking about that already because the room blocks are done. I'm getting ready to get the website out, and we're going to have registration open probably by the 1st of September, if not sooner. But we wanted to drill down more because there's only so much you can cover in a full-length episode. And let's be honest, there's only so much of an hour that any of you are going to listen to. And so if we can break this down into 4 episodes of Shop Talk and give those to you over the course of the next 4 weeks, then you're going to be in a really good position to understand how what captives are, how to identify those opportunities, get rid of the mental roadblocks that you might have as a result of captives. And then also, what are the talking points that you need when you're at the point of sale or you're out prospecting and captives come up? What can you say to give you a fighting chance to take it to the next step? And Shop Talks specifically are very, very tactical in nature because we want you to listen to an episode and leave with exactly what you need to do and implement. And I know it works because I get a lot of email from people every week saying, hey, I tried this trick or that trick. I mean, it's crazy because some of it's from like years ago and I completely forgot we even talked about it on an episode or whatever. So I know you guys listen. I know you guys implement. I want to give you good stuff. And with the current environment where it is, captives are becoming more and more prevalent, not just as a risk financing opportunity, but they're becoming more and more prevalent at specifically that middle market area that we play in. I think that most people used to think that captives were multi-million-dollar accounts, that had all this money to go in. And while it does require a financial commitment and certainly a risk management and safety commitment, it's becoming a more viable option for the types of accounts that you and I represent every day. And so I wanted to get Warren on as quickly as I could so that we could have that, start having these conversations. So with that long introduction, Warren, what's going on, man?
Dave, thanks, man. Thanks for having me out again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're going to start out with the dilemma, right? And this is something that I know, and you're doing, I know you work with my friend Kerry Weston. He's doing a very good job of having this message front and center all over social right now, specifically LinkedIn. But it has to do with the fact that our best clients are being targeted by other people because we don't even out of sight, out of mind, or I don't know, man. You see it more. I mean, you're on the other end of this thing. I don't know if it's agents that are scared of captives because they don't understand it. They don't know what to say. They don't realize who really is a prospect. And by the way, I think that as we get into this dilemma discussion, it would behoove you to identify who's a really good prospect. Otherwise, you're going to have everybody that has a trucking company or a horrible workers' comp account wanting to talk to you about being a miracle worker for them, and it's just not going to
Well,
happen. But yeah, I mean, what is the dilemma? Why do people not know their accounts are being targeted in this way?
yeah, well, all right. So let's take a moment, real quick, Dave. I mean, I almost, if you're listening to this and driving, don't close your eyes. But everybody think about this. Take a moment right now. Think about the one big client in your agency, right? The one that represents everything you've ever worked for. The one whose renewal check makes the difference, between a good year and a great year. And look, you all know exactly what I'm talking about, right? The client that even you would answer your phone on the weekends for, the one you've nurtured for years, the one that it they tell their friends about you. They're the ones who are at the top of the food chain, right? Picture their face. Think about their business and what it means. And remember, like, when they first became your client. Now imagine tomorrow morning, Monday morning, you get the call. Hey, Dave, we need to talk. We're going in a different direction. We're leaving. Now, you hang up the phone, your stomach drops. The six-figure revenue stream that you had has just gone, just disappeared, right? And this is not hypothetical, right? This happens every single day. And the reason I know that is because it happened to me, right? That's that $300,000 revenue client that I wished, that I didn't lose it because of service or anything like that, right? They just needed something that I didn't have. And that's what I want to get through agents' head. If you've got a handful of those accounts, and you know what the ones I'm talking about, right? That's gonna literally, they're sitting out there and they're being targeted every day by big brokers or competition. And the whole thing about, well, the market is this, the carrier's doing that. Ultimately, business owners, they don't care about that. They want somebody to solve their problem, right? What's their problem? They are fed up with the lack of transparency in every dollar they spend for insurance, right? They're frustrated with the claim that just never went away or went the wrong direction, that they never felt like they should have paid anything on. And ultimately, they just throw their hands up and they're just pissed off, right? Why do I keep writing all these checks and I feel like I get nothing out of it, right? So eventually those business owners, if somebody could fix that problem for them, they would leave you in a second. And that's what I want to get through your audience today, is that these folks are dead serious business owners. And as much as they like playing golf or having lunch or hanging out, they're running a business. And agents need to pay attention to this, because it will absolutely kick them, and it'll kick their butt.
Yeah, and I would also make the argument that if you're listening to this episode, focus on what you heard Warren say. They didn't leave him because of service, but they left him because of something he didn't have. I would make the argument that if you're listening to this, you have the ability to have this, and part of your good service moving forward is knowing that captives are an option and proactively talking to your clients about that as an opportunity. I don't know that everybody out there wants to be in a captive. I don't know why they wouldn't, but I don't necessarily know that everybody has even thought about it. And I think that's probably where a lot of the real danger comes from, because if you're sitting fat and happy on an account that you've always taken care of, you've never tabled the question. That's a really, really easy wedge for somebody who does this all day, every day, just to go through and say, I think that accounts that are, 3 to 600,000 in casualty premium right now, whatever is going to fit in the captive, build their leads list around that. And all they have to do is, have you ever considered moving into a captive on the phone?
Yeah.
Well, my agent's never mentioned it. Why would I do that? Now the conversation's going, man.
Well, yeah, not to interrupt you, but But that's the idea, right? The conversation's going, and now your client is asking you a question, and you're backpedaling.
Yep.
And you're backpedaling, and you're not sure about what to say and how to say it. So we can unpack that part, and I think we're going to talk about that in one of the other episodes about how to deal with that, right?
But 100%. And the whole thing is, why is your client even having to ask the question though? Like that's
right.
my thing.
Yeah.
If you're good in the middle market, and you have to be to survive in the middle market, when you're done listening to these shop talks, this needs to be part of your workflow. You should be consciously identifying captive opportunities in your book and immediately posing the question to them and to start the dialogue, because you're going to have the resource that you need to get these things done, for all practical purposes by the time these episodes are over. But the other thing is, I would not hesitate to paint the picture for the people that are kind of on the fringe of that too. Like you might have the account that's 2 or 250, but they're growing by 20 or 30% every year. You've been working with them for a few years. They have the controls in place. They are building that. They've got the financial stability, but they could probably have another good year or two under their belt. I don't think that it's a time that's too early to bring that conversation up about, hey, it might be okay to start thinking about preparing to move this direction. And this is why I bring that up now. I don't want to steal your thunder from anything else, but I mean, I feel like that's something proactive that could just be part of a renewal checklist for how you're going to talk to your clients and what things you're going to discuss every time, at renewal. Or if you want to do it sooner, do it. But if you're not going to, bottom line, if you're not going to table it, somebody else is, and you're going to find out about it when it's too late, because your client's not going to say, hey, by the way, I think I'm going to move to a captive in 6 or 8 months. They will have been working on it for 6 to 8 months before you ever hear about it.
That's right.
There's really no excuse for that, honestly.
There is none. And it's one of our newer members agency owner came to me and he said, we lost a $700,000 premium client. And I'm like, what happened? He goes, well, they had been working on a captive that we didn't bring it to them. And so they left, and we had no chance, like zero chance of getting that back, because so what they do, they looked at their entire book. And that's the other part about this, right? Dave, I mean, even though a lot of your agents focus on the middle market, they still have 3 kinds of clients, right? The small ones, if they left, it'd be no big deal. The middle ones, okay, it would sting a little bit, but it's not going to change their agency or their business, their book of business appreciably. They can still go on and prospect and everything, but it's the big ones, right? When you lose those big ones, like I did, and back in the day, when you lose those big ones, it impacts you financially so much. It's such a kick in the gut that it sets you back. And if you're not ahead of the curve on discussing this, you will absolutely be backpedaling. And then now, because what's going to happen? Hey, I so and so brought me a captive. What are you going to do then? Like, what are you going to say? Right? How hard is that going to be to go get, to go back in time and say, man, I wish I would have said that. It's funny. When I was just cleaning out my office, and I looked at, I just happened to come upon a presentation, and I looked at the date, and it was 2017. That was the first time I went through a captive presentation. It wasn't just 4 years later that I lost that big client. I could have learned about this 4 years before, and I didn't. Like, I did, but it just went in one ear and out the other. And I'm like, what a wasted opportunity that could have been for me.
So then how do agents get ahead of that curve that you're talking about, like, and not miss the boat on that? I mean, obviously there's multiple identifiers. We talked about premium revenue size and that sort of thing, and the rate at which they're growing, but like sometimes that's, you're not going to be tracking that closely. They're not your only client. Obviously they're a big client, and that's super important, and you got to be paying attention to those things. But like, how does a producer get ahead of that curve so that this doesn't happen to them as they get closer to renewal?
Well, that's the thing. You don't want to be doing this at renewal, Kyle.
Right.
That's the absolute wrong time, right? If you took the tip, right? So the typical business owner spending 250 or more comp GL auto, and you put another option in front, they've been buying insurance the same way for the last 15 years, right? You go and put a captive in front of them, they don't understand this is a complete paradigm shift. You're not renting insurance anymore. You own the company. So I would caution any of your producers listening, or account managers for that matter, if you're doing this as a renewal strategy, as a defensive tactic, you've already almost lost, right? You've at least caught it, but you caught the knife, but that's not the right idea. It's you need to have the discussion and start educating. This is not something somebody's just going to jump in and write a check. I mean, I'll show you when I went to the private equity guys that I was trying to save and said, hey, here's a captive option and a $5 million check. They looked at me like I had two heads. Like, we're not going to be able to do that, right? So if you bring a captive option with collateral, what it is to share risk and all this stuff as a renewal option, they're going to look at you and go, what are you talking about? Like, this doesn't even make sense, right? And they're going to look at you in a negative way. So being educated about this early, getting ahead of this, educating yourself, and that doesn't take a whole lot. You don't need to be a captive expert to work in this, right?
But let me just to clean
Yeah.
something up. I think where
Yeah.
Kyle was headed with that, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like when he was talking about it renewal, think more along the lines of we're going out to present your renewal this year, but we need to probably table this as something we should be exploring over the course of the next several months, moving to next year, right? Because you got to, that's when we're going to have their attention for a conversation, is when we're already out there to present something, not go in and say, oh, we need to do this, and this, but I think this is a viable option. I just think that's a natural touch point, that if you're going out and you've got an account that fits that several $100,000 in premium across comp auto GL, and you're looking at it and it's got maybe a 10-15% increase this year or whatever, but this is like the second or third year in a row due to growth, that you can't keep going out and delivering that kind of an increase every year. I think that's a natural time. I mean, you can tell me I'm completely nuts, but I feel like if I'm going out and delivering, my third year of increase in a row due to growth, and the account's profitable, shows that they've got a great loss history, if I'm not tabling that, they're going to Google shortly after that renewal meeting and saying, how can I save money on insurance? Or maybe they even know what a captive is or whatever else, but they're only going to accept that so long. And that's why we have to be more than just insurance salespeople. We can't just
Agreed.
go out and place policies. You have to be looking at these things from a strategic standpoint out in front. And I mean, one of the reasons why my clients specifically, and I'm not saying this to beat on my chest, I'm just telling you, like, I practice what I preach when I'm dealing with my clients. And the Killing Commercial family knows that, because I record those calls and many times post them in the community so they can see me in a real live sales call or whatever else and actually connect the dots. But the reality is, when we're going out and having like the renewal conversation, or even just for a risk management visit, there is a segment of that meeting that is always dedicated to forward-looking strategy. What are we going to do to optimize? Where are we going to find efficiency? Where are we going to do these things? And I can tell you, in my own process, that's exactly what I'm going to bring this up as a consideration. I've already disclosed to you, I have two accounts right now that they're not ready. I mean, they know they're not ready because they had to come to me first to get all of the infrastructure in place, all of the risk management programs, and get everything dialed in so that a great loss history is predictable and not just luck, which is where I told them they've been for the last few years. It's like, you guys are either hiding claims or you're extremely lucky, but there's no reason that you should have an account that's this. But people, just for a point of reference, I don't normally share numbers, but this thing is rapidly approaching a couple $1 million in premium. I gotta bring it up. Like, there's like, it was brought up in the, like, why are you guys even talking to me? There's a reason you're talking to me now, as opposed to going and talking to somebody about putting a captive in place. And it was a referral from one of my best referral partners. And he said, because I know I got to have the risk management stuff dialed in before we can do that.
Well, what's interesting about that, if you think about what it takes and clients this size, normally, most agents that I know are doing quarterly claims reviews, right? And if you're going to a claims review and you're like, hey, these claims are looking great, your loss ratio is this, that's when, to your point, that's when I'd be talking about it, right? I'd be talking about at a claims review going, hey, you're showing a claims development that is really stellar. The insurance industry loves you. Here's another option that we should start exploring, right? And I'll let you coach them up on how to do that, right? You're better at that than I am. But that's the idea, is that you need to be having that conversation much earlier. Do not do this 90 days prior to renewal.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, man, but I feel like captives they allow an agency who's willing to play in those waters to expand their geographic footprint to more than just where they're locally at. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot more freedom in how, I shouldn't say freedom, is probably not the best word, but it's more fluid in how it's structured. You're not necessarily bound to the same, like for workers' comp in Florida, for example, right? We got state administered pricing. You had an agency here. I'm only going to get a better dividend or maybe better retro factors if we go into retrospectively rated stuff. But for all practical purposes, I don't have a lot of flexibility in pricing or whatever. If I get into a captive model, I got a lot more flexibility. It's different than at that point, writing high deductible comp or whatever else. You figure out, what your book rate is and then what you need to charge, and you manage your profitability inside the spread. But I feel like that's the other thing. If you're going to, and again, like if I'm a niche player, and my niche is HVAC companies, and it's HVAC companies that have $500,000 in premium across GL Comp and Auto, and I've got the risk management piece that's going to help make sure that account remains profitable. HVAC companies are going to run the same. It doesn't matter if it's Florida, Nebraska, Mississippi. The size and shape may be a little different, and the guaranteed cost premiums may be different, but operationally, it's the same concepts. And you could be a niche player that takes those middle market accounts that other people are kind of asleep at the wheel with and think they're doing awesome, and just pepper them, call them, and I guarantee you could build a really good book of business just doing that. And the problem is we've got those sitting in front of us, and we're not the ones making the call, but they belong to us already.
Right. Well, and it's funny, and you take that same business owner, right, who if you're an agent and you're not presenting this, and that business owner's like, okay, I've had enough of this, and they're just frustrated and pissed off about it, and they start Googling, do you know how many other captive managers are ready, willing, and able to take that business in without you? Period. They will happily take that business over and have an internal producer own that. And guess what? They're not bringing you along. And I think that's another dangerous thing. I mean, we get calls from business owners every week, and they're like, hey, tell me about this captive. We have a quick conversation about how it works, and I'll ask them, who's your agent? Like, if it's an independent agent, put us in touch with them. We'll do this together, right? But if it's somebody else, like one of these large national brokers, well, then we'll introduce them to somebody in our network. I think that's super important. If you don't have control of the conversation, you've lost, right? Don't lose the control of the conversation. So important.
100%. That's probably a good place for us to break and then move into the next one. I mean, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap this episode up?
That's it.
Perfect.